You are the Christmas child. I am the Christmas child. Together? I am the Christmas child, and I am rushing headlong down the Christmas path towards Christmas. Together? I am rushing headlong down the Christmas path towards Christmas. Can you let that child out? Can you let that kid out? Their baby that's inside of you. Do you know any baby that ever had any self-esteem issues? Self-consciousness, shame or guilt or worry? No. And that's why Jesus said you must become as a child. You know, I was reading a story about Michael Faraday, the discoverer of electromagnetism, and he was giving a tour to Queen Victoria of his science lab, and she was very impressed as they went through all of the different experiments that Michael Faraday was doing, and finally she turned to him and she said, exactly of what use are these experiments? What practical use? And he said, well, madam, of what practical use is a baby?
Oh.
Sit with that one. So you're sitting there right now and you're saying, of what use is my life? Of what use is my energy, my vibration, my soul, my consciousness, my activities in life, my life plan? Of what use? What exactly, of what use is a baby? There's a baby inside you being birthed, and all of your expressions are laying up treasures in the kingdom of heaven, as Jesus said. All of your expressions. It's not, electromagnetism had no practical use. There's no practical use maybe to what you're doing right now, but it's going to give birth to something that is going to grow and grow and grow and become what? You don't know yet. It's almost like you're, in the words of Jane Hart, your laying up treasures is like putting a deposit in your karmic bank account. It's putting up karmic credits that you will withdraw at another time to do something else. But you are doing this work right now. It's not far off. It's something that's in your soul right now. You are doing a great work right where you are, but only if you let the kid out. Only if you let the Christmas child out. Only if you will be that Christmas child. That Christmas child is ready to be born in you. It's expressing through you. But it needs something. It needs not only your willingness that it be born, but also your care and keeping, your caring about it, your fascination, your sense of the romance of this baby, this beautiful child inside of you. I was just imagining a scene on the corner of East Wacker Drive and North Michigan Avenue. And there's two men, and they're standing there, and they can't get across the street because there's so much traffic. And they've got the green signal, you can walk, but they can't walk because they can't get through. And one man says to the other man, this is really terrible. Look at this terrible traffic. It's at Christmas time, but he says, somebody should do something about it. And the other man said, you know, I was just thinking of the romance of it. And he said, romance? What's romantic about a traffic jam? He said, well, think about it. Here it is, Christmas time, on East Wacker Drive and North Michigan Avenue, one of the most sophisticated streets in the world, and there's a traffic jam because of 2,000 years ago of peasant parents in a faraway place halfway around the earth, people who had no particular standing. There was a birth of a baby that no one particularly paid attention to at the time, and it stops traffic in this incredibly sophisticated location. You find it annoying. I find it fascinating. Christmas is for children because only children have the fascination for Christmas. Only children have the romance for Christmas. Only children have the sense of value for Christmas. If Brad Pitt was sitting right here and Joanne Ballard was sitting right there, and there's a little child running up, who would the child run up to? To Joanne, right? Because they see value, they see the love. You see, children appreciate love, they understand the love. And the baby that was born 2,000 years ago was frozen love. Frozen love. It's frozen in space and time. I was just imagining that baby was like a hypertext link You know, when you click on it, and it opens up to the entire internet. And all the universe of love can be experienced through that one little frozen bit of love. That little snowflake of love. And Jesus is frozen love. You know, I have a career. I'm a minister. It's a job. I have things to do. And I'm always busy, and I have, you know, things to prepare for, and there's a leak in the roof. There's not, but if there was. And there's, you know, we had a fire in the foyer there, and there were scorch marks, and oh my gosh, we had to replace that stuff, and there's always things to do. But then I have to there's a tug on my heart. There's a tug, and it always pulls me back to my purpose. What's my purpose? My purpose is found in that baby. My purpose is found by love. And that baby, that love, that perfect love, this is an interesting thing. This little particular baby is frozen love, and it is the representation or the fulfillment of all the love in the universe. Just like physicists say that every subatomic particle is linked with every other subatomic particle. Or Eric Butterworth, remember that story I told about how he said that every penny contains all the spiritual substance of God that exists in $1 million? And then his widow told me the story of where that came from, about how when he was in the Depression, and how they didn't have any money. But they lived in a mansion. And the reason why they lived in a mansion is because his mother wanted them to get a good education. She was the Unity minister of the Unity Church in Long Beach, California. But it was during the Depression. Her husband was a gambling addict and would leave them for months at a time. And he would squander all their money. And they did. And this particular night, it was during the Christmas season, they didn't have any money. They didn't have any food in the house. And Eric Butterworth was 8 years old. And he said to his mother, they had a few pennies. He said, let's get the pennies and let's get the basket. They got a wicker basket, and he and his sister and his brother and his mother, he said, now, we're going to say a prayer, we're going to say an affirmation, and we're going to throw the pennies up in the air, and they will gather spiritual substance. When they come down, they will be multiplied, and it'll be filled with spiritual substance. So, they said their prayer, and they did it. See, it's playful! It's playful! And they did it, and it came down, and the doorbell rang right then, and it was the next door neighbor. The next door neighbor had just had a feast, a banquet, and they carried, all the servants carried in tureens of food because all their guests didn't show up, and they ate a great feast. They lived in that neighborhood because she was able to go to the courthouse and find the owner of record of a mansion that was abandoned. She said, I'll take care of your house with my children if you'll let us stay rent-free. And so they lived in this neighborhood, but here it was. All of this good showed up. But you have to have that playful attitude. You have to have that attitude of the child. Children know value. Children know the truth. Children tell the truth. I remember when Rosalie was about 2 years old, and it was Christmas time, and I was, you know, concerned about things, and I was kind of running around doing things, and everything was going on. And do you ever feel like that at Christmas time? And I was rushing around, and I was muttering to myself. She says, "Daddy," I said, "What?" She says, "Are you in your ego again?" Children. Christmas is for children. We're the happiest people at Christmas time. Children. Who are the second happiest people at Christmas time? People who can be around children. And who are the third happiest people at Christmas time? People who don't give a rip what anybody else thinks, and they act like children. You can let your child out. Have some fun. Enjoy it. You know, this moment right here, right now, is your hypertext link. It opens you up to the entire universe of love. And it's there for you. You're not abandoned. You're like that snowflake that melts into the allness and then has a spiritual purpose. And you notice in the story that we did in the meditation of the little snowflake in the sunshine, it never stops. It never ends. Oh, and now I'm fixed. Now it's done. No, it's always another. And then it's always another. And it's always another. And you say, but I want it to be fixed. But if it was fixed, it would be dead. What did St. Bob Dylan say? The one who's not busy being born is busy dying. You know? And what did Benjamin Franklin say? He said, most people die by the time they're 25, but their bodies don't get the message till they're 70. You know, we have to be constantly giving birth to ourselves, constantly opening up to a new possibility of living, a new possibility of life itself. But we have to let the child out. I love this wonderful poem from Rumi. Chew quietly your sweet sugarcane God love, and stay playfully childish. Your face will turn rosy with illumination like the rosebud flowers. Rosy with illumination like the rosebud flowers. But we think that life's a race. We think it's got a destination, that it's fixed, and then it's done, and then I get the thing at the end. Maybe you get a trophy, maybe you get an atta girl, maybe you get a gold star, but it's not like that. Once I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I was meditating on, well, how do I deal with this? Things weren't turning out the way I wanted, and what I saw was a pinball game. A pinball game. You ever play an electric pinball game? And the point of the pinball game isn't to get to a destination or to get to some place. It's to keep the ball in play, bouncing off, and keep it bouncing. And every time it bounces off another experience, you get points in your spiritual credit, your karmic credit account, your kingdom of heaven. And your point is to keep the ball in play. I keep my ball in play. Together? I keep my ball in play. So keep it bouncing. Keep it bouncing. And there's not just 5 balls, because it's an infinite experience. But what do? You rack up points. You rack up points. And so look at your life in a different way. It isn't about accumulation of things. It isn't about getting to a destination. It's about constantly growing and learning and changing and being. And being that Christmas child. The evidence is all around you. The evidence here at Christmas time. The evidence is certainly in the spiritual story. And I love the way people are using Christmas as a weapon to bang each other over the head, saying it has to be religious. It doesn't have to be religious, because the message is there no matter what. I had a woman come into me in my very first church, and this is a true life Scrooge story. She showed up with 5 Bibles. Now, I was this was in the Los Angeles area in my first church, my first Christmas, and I was on this program regularly, and the TV show, and it was well watched. So about once a month, somebody would call me out of the blue and ask to be counseled. And I had some really, they didn't come to our church, really strange. I had the mother of a guy who thought he was the devil call me up to try to talk him out of it. I talked to him on the phone, and he was perfectly accepting of the whole thing. And I said to her, he's doing okay. I think you're going to have to get counseling. Yeah. So I'm telling you, so here's the same kind of a thing. So this person shows up with 5 Bibles, and she hands me the Bibles. She says, as a Christian minister, I give these to you, and you must take back Christmas. And I said, what? And I set the Bibles over. She said, and I said, before I do that, let's talk about it. So we sat down, and I said, what's this about? And she said, well, and she told me the story. And it was a very troubling story, a disturbing story about an abusive family. She'd been abused in her church, in her family, and she associated all of this negative stuff with Christmas. She said, I've been spending my last 30 years giving away Christmas solstice gifts and cards and celebrating Christmas solstice, but blocking out Christmas, because to me, Christmas is just hypocrisy. It's a lie. It's acting one way and believing in another. And she said, so I'm through with Christmas. Somehow this year, she said, I couldn't make it work. Somehow the depression got so deep, and I couldn't keep Christmas out. It's almost like it's just pushing in on me. So I want you to take back Christmas as a Christian minister. I guess she figured I was open-minded enough that I might fall for that. So I said, let's talk about what you need to do. Now, I've got a picture in my office, and I did then. It's a picture of Jesus. And those pictures with the eyes that follow you, those 3-dimensional pictures? Well, this one isn't one of those. But it's like that, because every time I look at that picture, when I counsel somebody, it's like I can tell from the expression on his face what I'm supposed to do. And there are times that he's very compassionate, other times that he's kind of amused, other times he looks a little pissed off. There's this different, I'm not making this up. This is what you got as a minister, folks. So when I'm looking, so I don't know what to say to this woman. I'm looking at my picture of Jesus, and I'm looking and saying, what do I do here? And there's just this little impish look. And I said to her, you know what you need to do? And I knew it was the right thing. For somebody else, this wouldn't have worked. I said, you need to take back Christmas. She said, I can't do that. Yes, You need to reclaim Christmas. You need to embrace Christmas. In fact, you realize what Christmas is? She says, well, the world's a lousy place. I said, yeah, but it's better because of that birth of that baby 2,000 years ago. Those were really rough times, much rougher than ours. And the world is a better place as a result of the birth of that baby. And think about Christmas. And I shared with her, I did a little sales pitch on Christmas. I said, peace on earth. That's the yearning of all humanity. And the angels, this is the messages from God that are always speaking to us. And the shepherds are those humble, listening ears that are open to the spiritual message. And what's the Virgin Mary? She's the innocence in which the spiritual is born. And the baby is the, unto us a child is given. It's great things come from humble beginnings, very small beginnings. And I went through all the different stories, the Magi, the whole thing. And she seemed to be interested in it, so I kept talking. I'm a minister. So then, but she says, yeah, but okay, I can accept that, but that's not what I see around me. I see the hypocrisy of the commercialisation of Christmas. You hear that one? And she said, all this stuff out there. And I said, you know what? That also is the spiritual expression. But it's showing up in different, because think about it, and I'm saying this to you, think about it. Become conscious of the symbols of Christmas and make them your own and let them awaken you. I said, the colors is that the bright energy that's there. And think about Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. It's that the ugly duckling story of all your faults becoming your greatest assets. And I said, the white Christmas, the beauty of the snow. And I went through all of them. I can't remember all of them, but I went through all of the things. They just came one after another, tumbling out. And she said, well, I suppose I could try, but I don't know how to do that. What do I do? I said, what you need to do is go out and buy the cheapest, gaudiest, most tacky Christmas decorations you can and put them all around your apartment. She said she'd lived alone. And put it all, and then get some music, some Christmas music that's really kind of cheesy, and play it really loud, and make it really, do all the things about Christmas that you don't like. You need to own, because you need to reclaim this. And on Christmas Eve, go to a church service, preferably in the church that you were raised in, and do this. Do this as an experiment. See what it's like. Well, she never attended my church, but she came back after Christmas. She said, I did it. And she took back her Bibles. And she said, she's not that she ever wanted to join any church, but she owned her Christmas. Christmas is for children. She let the kid out. She reclaimed it. Now for you, maybe it's your family. Maybe it's the circumstance in your life. Maybe it's things not being exactly the way you want them to be. But you have an access right now to a link of all the love in the universe. All the love in the universe. All because of why? Because there was a baby born 2,000 years ago. And you're celebrating this. Think about Augustus Caesar. Who was the greatest person at the time of Jesus' birth? Augustus Caesar. And he was great. And he was powerful. And he was bloodthirsty. And who celebrates his birth? Nobody. Who was Jesus? Nobody. But everybody celebrates his birth. He could be the most loved person in history. I found this wonderful cartoon many years ago, and I had it up for many years. I actually showed it to that woman. It says here, it shows a man being carried off by the Praetorian Guard, and there's obviously an emperor there. It says, you think you're so great. You think you're so big. Well, you know how you're going to be remembered, oh great Caesar, as a salad. A salad. Are you willing to take a chance? So many things are left undone and unaccomplished in the world because we're afraid of making fools out of ourselves. We're afraid of letting that kid out. But there's that part of us that needs to come out. Then we need to stop taking things so seriously. Life is too important to be taken seriously. Even, in the medieval times, the great king would always have a court jester who would always poke fun at everybody, including the king, to try to get the kid out. My son and I love to watch old documentaries about history, especially American history. And we were watching these documentaries about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I did a little extra reading on it, and I found Roosevelt had an impish sense of humor. This is the funniest thing. He really tired so much of everybody taking everything so seriously, being so ceremonial and so whatever, that one time he had a huge reception with all the foreign diplomats. And of course there'd be a line of them, and he'd be sitting there in his chair, and he'd shake their hand, and they'd mumble a few words and whatever. And he decided he'd have some fun. So everybody that shook his hand, he said, "I just murdered my grandmother this morning." And they say, "Very good, Mr. President. That's fine, Mr. President. Great, Mr. President." Nobody even blinked an eye. Nobody acted like they even heard him, except for one European diplomat who was a poet from Czechoslovakia. This is in the early 30s. And he said, "I'm sure she had it coming to her, Mr. President." Let the kid out. Let the kid out. This is a kind of a troubling story, but it talks about how you can make a shift, a monumental shift in the consciousness of yourself, but also affect the world around you in a powerful way. Robert Desnos was a surrealist poet in France in the 1920s and 30s. And then he became a member of the French Resistance, and then he was caught and he was sent to Auschwitz. Now there's probably no worse environment than that. And when he and all of his barracks mates were told to get onto the truck, and they were let out, and then they were told to line up in front of a building, they knew what was going to happen. At that moment, Robert Desnos jumped out of the line and said, "Who wants their fortune read? I can read palms." And they were thinking, "Fortune read? I can read your future." They knew what their future was going to be. But one of them said, "Sure, go ahead. Oh, long life, many children, grandchildren. You're going to become wealthy. Who else?" And he went all the way. And these sullen, sad, and frightened young guards were standing there just, they didn't know what to do. So they started doing it. They started getting their fortunes told, and finally they just put them all back on the truck and drove them back to the barracks. And all of those people survived Auschwitz who didn't die of natural causes. My point of this is that there, even in that structural violence of culture, of consciousness, there's a shift that takes place. You can shift the environment in yourself by letting your child out. My sister's always been able to do that. I love telling those stories about my sister. You know, she'd gone with a friend to hear a guy named Neil Finn and his brother, I forget his name, but they were the leaders of Crowded House, but it was a smaller club in San Francisco. And I've told the story before, but they were playing a duet thing. It was more of a folky thing. It was acoustic. And they said, "We're going to take a break and we're going to eat something." She said, "Oh, where are you going to go eat?" I mean, it's my sister. And she was by the stage. He says, "Oh, we're going to eat here." She said, "Oh, the food here is lousy. The best restaurant in San Francisco is half a block away." He says, "Well, take us there." So she took him there. And he said, "You really know your way around the city, don't you?" "Oh, yeah, I grew up here." "Well, show us around." So she showed these rock stars, famous rock stars, more famous than other countries around, and they ended up going to Boz Scaggs Club. And then Chris Isaak asked for her phone number. She told me about this. She says, "I don't know. They don't want to date. I'm just this middle-aged woman. I don't understand what they're doing." They thought she was working for them. They thought she was their handler. So she started getting all these gigs. They'd say to her, she'd get these calls. They'd say, "Well, have you been doing this long?" "Well, I mostly do it in the corporate world." She really did. In the corporate world, she took care of events. But she'd never done anything like this. And she ended up and that's where she started getting all these jobs. She spent weeks with the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan and all the Beatles and all the people and all these things. In fact, at one time, she lets her kid out. She still lets her kid out, and doors open all the time. She was working, and she was working for, I guess it was Billy Joel, and he was touring with Elton John. And Elton John came out dressed in one of his outfits, and he just saw her standing there. He says, "How do I look?" She says, "How do you look? Who do you think you are, Liberace?" And he said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." And they started talking about Liberace, and they were laughing, having a great old time. A week or two later, big old thing of roses sent to her house. He had to have people research who she was and where she was. And it said, "With love, I enjoyed our conversation, Elton." I mean, this is how she just lived her life. I could tell you stories for hours, probably will eventually. But the point is, let your kid out. Let your kid out. Let the child in you out. You never know. You never know. If you don't take a chance, if you're standing in line at the store, you don't know how it's going to affect somebody else. You don't know. But this is your Christmas. You are the Christmas child. You're running down the road of life towards Christmas. And what's in your heart? Do you have that open-eyed wonder? Do you have that child in you? Are you going to let that child out? This is your opportunity. So let's all just kind of open our hearts, open our minds, and let in Christmas. And just imagine that we're that child on Christmas morning, that the happiest people at Christmas are children. So we imagine that we're that child opening the presents, experiencing it, not having any self-consciousness. Little child, too young to know better. Jesus said, of such is the kingdom of heaven. Unless you become as one of these, you cannot enter this kingdom, this spiritual experience. And so I'm going to let my little kid out. I'm going to let my child out, my inner child. And I project myself into my Christmas experience, my Christmas morning, my Christmas Eve, my Christmas day, and my Christmas week. And I do it with my eyes of wonder. I enjoy the colors, I enjoy the music, I enjoy the lights. I enjoy all the commercial trappings. And I enjoy the spiritual, the birth of the Christ consciousness in me. Right where I am, right in this cave of the heart, right in this manger. I make my commitment to enjoy my Christmas. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. And there's such a beautiful hush about it all. And it teaches us something. So what I want to invite you to do is close your eyes and just imagine this. This is my favorite teacher when I was in ministerial school 40 years ago, Dennis Nagel. He wrote this, I caught this morning at dawning, and the sun on the last night's snow revealed that there was no footfall, only the soft, silent flow of earth and earth's undulations in the white, unbroken snow. This is our soul at each dawning, silent and perfectly white. Unblemished, it follows our contours as if somehow God's delight is to cover us softly with mercy and renew us over the night. This is a sacred time. What does sacred mean? It means it's whole, it's complete, and it's who you are inside coming out to play. It's that inner child. Christmas is for children. The happiest people at Christmas time are children. And the second happiest are people around children. And the third happiest people at Christmas time are the people who don't care what anyone else thinks and they act like children. So close your eyes and let go of everything in your hands. This morning I received an email from Jane Hart, and she suggested that I read the story that came to me last year, The Little Snowflake in the Sunshine. It came in the middle of the night as a picture, and the words just spilled out onto the page, and I don't think I changed hardly any of them. It just came. It was a God job. So right now, imagine the imagery of this. I'm going to read it to you and become that child. The little snowflake in the sunshine. Once upon a time, there was a little snowflake. Actually, it wasn't quite a snowflake. It was so tiny that you couldn't really call it a snowflake just yet. Maybe it was just a tiny seed of a snowflake. But if you looked at it under a microscope, there it would be, the tiniest image of a snowflake born within a cloud. It kind of looked like a snowflake. Maybe it was a snowflake in training. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew, until it fell right out of the cloud. It had grown way too big to stay there in the cloud, of course. But I don't want to fall out of my cloud, said the little snowflake. Another voice spoke. Hello! Who are you? Asked the little snowflake. I am the sunshine. The what? The sunshine. What's that? I can't see any sunshine. Where are you hiding? I am here all around you, but you cannot see me. Now listen carefully. As you go along your journey, you must remember two different things. It is good for you to change. And to change, you must let go of who you once thought you were. And so the little snowflake drifted in the wind. Down, down, down it drifted. Guided by the wind, it drifted. It didn't seem to have any real sense of direction. But then, suddenly, thump! It had bounced off of another snowflake. Thump! And another. Thump! And still another. I don't like it when I bump into other snowflakes. I don't like it either, said a voice. I don't either, said another. And another. And still another. These voices were all of the other snowflakes. The whirling, rushing wind had pushed them into one another, and they did not like it one bit. It is good and necessary for you to bump into one another. That way you will learn how to get along. You are all on a very special journey. You each have a very special purpose. Who is that? Asked the little snowflake. The sunshine. All I see are clouds above, and lots of annoying little snowflakes like me, and we all seem to be bumping into each other a lot. Where are you? Bump. The little snowflake's conversation with the sunshine was interrupted. It had landed in a snowbank and was surrounded by all kinds of different looking snowflakes. They all lay there complaining. I don't like it when I am stuck here with all of you. I don't like it either, said another snowflake. It's way too crowded here. Get off of me, and so on. And then the sun came out. Here I am at last, said the sunshine. It is good and necessary for you to lie here on this snowbank. You are still on a very special journey. Pretty soon, you are all going to join together to fulfill your very special purpose. You must learn how to blend and merge with others to do that mighty task. I don't want to do that. I want to stay a snowflake. I know what that is. And what do you mean, join together? Remember, said the sunshine, that you must always change and let go of who you thought you were so that you can fulfill your special purpose. And before the little snowflake could even answer, the sunshine blended the little snowflake together with all of the other snowflakes that made up the snowbank. And they melted together. I don't like this. I am not even sure who I am anymore, cried the little snowflake. That's okay. Just let go and trust that change is good. It's part of life. And you must change to fulfill your special purpose. And that always means letting go of what you thought you were, said the sunshine. Deep, deep, deep within the earth, the newly blended snowflake quietly dripped. It is time to fulfill your mighty purpose. It is time to change once more. Let go of what you thought you were, said the sunshine. Why? Why? Why do I have to let go and change again? I was just getting used to being part of all the melted snowflakes. Does that mean there's something more for me to do? Asked the little snowflake. It struck a seed of a mighty oak tree. But before the sunshine could even answer, the little snowflake was drawn slowly into the seed, which ever so slowly grew upward into a tree, which gave life and nourishment to the other plants and animals and insects and life, and provided shade to a family, your family. And then, because of a wonderful, magical, scientific thing called photosynthesis, the little snowflake's many molecules were breathed out of the pores of the now mighty oak tree. By this time, the little snowflake had changed and let go so many times that it didn't mind anymore. It just was excited to see what the next part of its special journey would be. And there it was, still alive. But now, it was the wind, dancing in the sunshine. That was it. Dancing in the sunshine must be its special purpose. Until a cloud began to form, and drew the little snowflake into itself as a tiny seed, and everything started all over again. And so we're ready to take our offering now. We're going to give our offering in the spirit of the Christmas child. So I give in the spirit of the Christmas child, and I receive abundantly. Together, I give in the spirit of the Christmas child, and I receive abundantly and silently. And again aloud together. I give in the spirit of the Christmas child, and I receive abundantly, and so it is. Amen.